Do you want to go out with me?
She was already closing the bar when a monster from her past returned, wearing a twisted smile, asking for one last drink. He knew exactly how to unravel her, and she had sworn she would never fall into his trap again. Now they challenge each other, and the final question is, who breaks first?
Welcome to my library. I'm Lena, and our story is just beginning.
Chapter 1. One last drink.
I just need the job.
The thing about working in a bar that caters to men with too much money and too little restraint is that you learn to become invisible while being completely visible. I discovered this skill 2 years ago when I started at the Chrysalis, this high-end cocktail bar where the cheapest drink could feed me for a week, and the clientele includes everyone from tech CEOs to politicians to men whose wealth comes from places you don't ask about. And I learned quickly that being beautiful gets you hired, being smart keeps you employed, and being unimpressed keeps you safe. Tonight is Tuesday, which means it's been slow, just a handful of regulars nursing expensive whiskey and pretending they're not checking their phones for messages from wives or mistresses. And now it's 2 a.m., and I'm wiping down the marble bar top with the kind of automatic precision that comes from doing something so many times your hands move without your brain's involvement. I'm good at this job, not just the serving part, but the craft of it. I can make a Negroni that'll make grown men weep, and an old-fashioned so perfect it tastes like liquid nostalgia, and I take pride in that. In being more than just the pretty girl behind the bar, in being someone who actually knows her shit. We're closed, I say, without looking up when I hear footsteps, because there's always one guy who thinks the rules don't apply to him, who sees the chairs going up on tables and thinks his money or charm or sheer audacity will get him one more drink. I know. 2 words. That's all it takes for my entire world to tilt sideways, because I know that voice, would recognize it in my sleep, in a crowded room, in hell itself, and my hands freeze on the bar top as 6 years of carefully constructed armor cracks straight down the middle. I look up slowly, giving myself time to prepare, to rebuild the walls, to remember that I'm not 18 anymore, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of Kieran Baylor sitting at my bar like the past 6 years didn't happen. Like he didn't destroy me so completely, I had to rebuild myself from scratch. He looks different, older obviously, but it's more than that. The boyish charm that used to make my heart stutter has been replaced by something harder, more dangerous, the kind of face that belongs to a man who's seen things and done things and doesn't apologize for any of it. He's wearing a suit that fits him like a second skin, all sharp lines and expensive fabric, and there's a scar along his jaw that definitely wasn't there before. "One last drink?" he asks. And his voice is lower than I remember, rougher, like he's smoked too many cigarettes or screamed too many orders, or both. I should tell him to leave, should maintain the boundary of we're closed and send him away before this gets complicated. But instead I hear myself ask, "What do you want?" The corner of his mouth lifts, not quite a smile. That's a loaded question, Nora. Hearing my name in his voice does something violent to my chest, because he says it like he still has the right to. Like he didn't walk away 6 years ago and take my entire heart with him. Like I didn't see him 2 months later with another girl's tongue down his throat at a party I only went to because I thought he might be there. "I meant what drink," I correct, my voice coming out colder than the ice in my well. "I know what you meant," Kieran says, but he's looking at me like he's cataloging every change, every difference between the girl I was and the woman I am, and I hate that I can feel his attention like a physical weight. "Surprise me. We're closed," I say again, because I need to establish some kind of control here. "You said that already. And yet, you're still sitting there, because you haven't asked me to leave," he points out, and he's right, which is infuriating. "If you want me gone, Nora, say the word. I'll walk out that door, and you'll never have to see me again." I should want that, should jump at the chance to erase him from my life a second time, but instead I find myself reaching for bottles, my hands moving through the familiar motions of building a drink. Something complex and bitter and strong, something that matches the taste in my mouth. "Still making drinks like they're art," Kieran observes, watching my hands with that focused intensity I remember too well. "Still making observations nobody asked for," I counter, measuring out Campari with more precision than necessary. He laughs, actually laughs, and the sound is so unexpected that I almost drop the bottle. "There she is." "Who?" "The girl who used to give me shit for everything." Kieran leans forward slightly, elbows on the bar. "I was wondering if she was still in there somewhere." "She's not," I say flatly, finishing the cocktail and sliding it across to him. "She grew up and learned better." "Better than what?" Better than falling for charming assholes who think the world revolves around them. I meet his eyes directly, refusing to look away first. Better than believing pretty words from men who don't know how to stay. Better than being the naive girl who thinks love is enough. Something flickers across Kieran's face. Might be regret, might be pain, but it's gone too quickly for me to identify. That's a lot of bitterness for one drink. You asked me to surprise you. I start wiping down the already clean bar, needing something to do with my hands. Consider yourself surprised. He takes a sip, his eyes never leaving mine, and I hate that I'm waiting for his reaction. Hate that some part of me still cares what he thinks. It's perfect, I know. Confident. Kieran's mouth quirks again. That's new. So, is the scar on your jaw? I point out, because if we're doing observations, I'm not holding back. What happened? Someone finally get tired of your bullshit? Something like that. He touches the scar absently. You look good, Nora. Really good. Different, but good. Don't what? Don't do that thing where you compliment me like you have the right to have opinions about how I look. I cross my arms, defensive and hating that I am. You lost that privilege 6 years ago when you walked away and told me you had more important things to do than waste time on a teenage crush. Kieran's expression goes carefully neutral. I never said you were a waste of time. You said you had a life to build, a father to impress, responsibilities that didn't include a girl who was too young and too naive to understand how the world really works. The words come out more bitter than I intended. And then 2 months later, I saw you at Jake Morrison's party with your tongue down Rebecca Chen's throat. So, excuse me, if I don't believe the pretty lies about how much you cared. That's not, he starts, but I cut him off. I don't want to hear it. I move away from the bar, starting to collect glasses even though most tables are already cleared. You showed up. You asked for a drink. You got one. Now we're done. Nora, we're closed, Kieran. I say it firmly this time with finality. And I'm not 18 anymore. I'm not going to stand here and let you charm your way back into my life, just because you're bored or nostalgic or whatever this is. He stands slowly, pulls out his wallet and places several bills on the bar, way more than the drink costs, more than any drink costs. I'm not trying to charm you. Then what are you doing here? Kieran looks at me for a long moment, and there's something in his eyes that I can't quite read, something that looks almost like desperation. I heard you were working here. Heard you were doing well, making a name for yourself as one of the best bartenders in the city, and I wanted to see if it was true. Why? Because I needed to know you were okay, he says simply. Because I've spent 6 years wondering what happened to the girl who used to look at me like I hung the moon, and I needed to see that she survived. The honesty of it steals my breath, but I force myself to stay cold. Well, now, I survived. I thrived, actually. So you can go back to whatever crime lord bullshit you're doing these days with a clear conscience. Kieran's expression shifts, something sharp and dangerous replacing the vulnerability. You know about that. Everyone knows about that. I gesture vaguely. You're Kieran Baylor, son of Patrick Baylor, the man who basically owns half the city's underground. Did you think people wouldn't talk? I thought you might not care enough to listen. I don't, I lie. Because the truth is, I've kept track of him like checking a wound that won't heal, knowing exactly where he is and what he's doing, even though it hurts every single time. But information travels in places like this. Men get drunk and talk, and your name comes up more than I'd like. Does it bother you? Kieran asks, knowing what I do. It would have bothered the girl I was at 18, I admit. But, like I said, she's gone. And the woman I am now doesn't care who you work for or what you do, because none of it has anything to do with me. Doesn't it? He takes a step toward the bar, toward me, and I force myself not to retreat. Because I'm here. Nora, I'm sitting at your bar, asking for one last drink, and you made it for me even though we're closed. So maybe it has more to do with you than you want to admit. He's right, and I hate it. You need to leave. I will, Kieran promises, but he doesn't move. But I'm coming back tomorrow night, and the night after that, and every night until you talk to me properly instead of throwing my past mistakes in my face. I have nothing to say to you. Then just listen. His voice drops lower, more intense. Let me explain what actually happened 6 years ago. Let me tell you the parts you didn't see. And after that, if you still want me gone, I'll disappear, and you'll never have to see me again. I should say no, should protect myself from whatever this is. But looking at Kieran, at the desperation barely hidden behind his careful control, I find myself curious despite everything, curious about what explanation could possibly justify the way he shattered me. One conversation, I hear myself say. Tomorrow night, after closing, you get one chance to say whatever you think you need to say, and then you leave. Kieran's relief is visible. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I start turning off lights, signaling that this is really over. You might not like what happens when I actually let myself be honest with you. I'll take that risk. He moves toward the door, then pauses. Nora? What? That drink was perfect, he says quietly. Best I've ever had. Then he's gone, leaving me alone in the darkened bar with a pile of too much money and the uncomfortable realization that 6 years later, Kieran Baylor can still make my heart do things I don't have permission for. Chapter 2, Ghosts and Scars.
You're always quiet.
I don't sleep after Kieran leaves. Just lie in my studio apartment staring at the ceiling and trying not to think about the way he said my name, like it still meant something, like 6 years of silence could be erased with one conversation and a perfectly made cocktail. But my brain doesn't cooperate, because now that he's opened the door to the past, I can't stop the memories from flooding in, can't stop myself from being 18 again, young and stupid, and so completely in love that I didn't see the warning signs until it was too late. I met him at a party I wasn't supposed to be at, one of those warehouse gatherings where the music was too loud and the drinks were too strong, and everyone was pretending to be older and more sophisticated than they actually were. And Kieran was there with friends, 24 to my 18, confident in a way that made my chest hurt because he seemed to know exactly who he was, while I was still figuring out who I wanted to be. He noticed me first. That's what I remember most clearly. Not that I threw myself at him or chased him or did any of the things girls were supposed to do to get a guy's attention. He just looked across the room and saw me standing alone by the makeshift bar, and something in his expression shifted, and then he was walking toward me like he'd been looking for me his entire life. "You look lost," he'd said, and his voice was warm then, not rough like it is now, just warm and slightly amused like he found my discomfort charming. "I'm not lost," I'd responded, defensive because I was exactly that. "I'm just observing." Observing what? People pretending to be someone they're not. I gestured to the room. It's fascinating, really, how much energy people spend on performance. Kieran had smiled then, really smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "And you're not performing?" "I'm too tired to perform," I'd admitted, because 18-year-old me hadn't learned to guard her honesty yet. "I'm just trying to survive high school and figure out what comes next." "High school," he'd repeated, and something had flickered in his eyes. "How old are you?" 18. Just graduated? Before you ask if I should even be here. I wasn't going to ask that. Kieran had leaned against the bar beside me. I was going to ask if you wanted to get out of here, go somewhere quieter where we can actually hear each other talk. And I'd said yes, because, of course I'd said yes, because he was beautiful and interested and made me feel like I was the only person in the room. And that's how it started, with me being young and naive enough to believe that when someone looks at you like you matter, it means you actually do. I roll over in bed, pulling the blanket tighter, trying to block out the memory of what came next. The 3 months of pure intensity where Kieran and I existed in this bubble, where nothing else mattered, where we'd meet late at night and talk for hours, where he'd kiss me like I was oxygen and he was drowning, where I fell so completely in love that I couldn't imagine a future that didn't include him. But it wasn't real. Or maybe it was real, but it wasn't sustainable. Because Kieran had a life I didn't understand, a father with expectations, a business that required his attention, responsibilities that a teenage girl with dreams of college and normalcy couldn't fit into. The conversation happened on a Tuesday, I remember, because I'd had a chemistry exam that day and failed it because all I could think about was seeing him that night. And when I showed up at our usual spot, he was different, distant, like he'd already left even though he was still standing there. "We need to talk," he'd said. And those 4 words had made my stomach drop because everyone knows nothing good ever follows that phrase. "Okay," I'd tried to sound calm, mature, like I could handle whatever he was about to say. "This isn't working." Kieran had run his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as frustration. "I have things I need to focus on, a life I need to build, and I can't do that while I'm distracted by a relationship that's going nowhere." "Going nowhere?" The words had come out small, hurt. "Nora, you're 18. You're about to start college. You have your whole life ahead of you." He'd said it gently, like that would make it hurt less. "And I'm 24 with a father who expects me to take over the family business. We're in completely different places, and this, whatever this is, it's not fair to either of us." "So that's it?" I'd felt tears burning behind my eyes. You're just done. Just like that? It's not just like that. Kieran had stepped closer, reached for my hand, and I'd let him take it because I was pathetic. I care about you, Nora, but this isn't real life. This is a fantasy we've been playing at, and we both need to face reality. My feelings are real, I'd said, and God, I'd sounded so young, so desperate. I know, he'd said, and then he'd kissed me one last time, soft and sad and final, and then he'd walked away, and I'd stood there in the dark feeling like my entire world had collapsed. I sit up in bed now, 6 years later, and I can still feel the ghost of that kiss, can still remember the exact texture of his shirt under my fingers when I'd grabbed at him, trying to make him stay, can still hear the sound of his footsteps walking away. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 2 months later when I'd gone to that party specifically hoping to run into him, hoping that maybe enough time had passed that we could try again, and instead I'd walked in and seen him with Rebecca Chen, her hands in his hair and his hands on her waist, and their mouths fused together like she was giving him air. I'd stood there frozen, watching the man who'd said he needed to focus on his life and couldn't handle a relationship apparently having no problem with casual hookups, and something inside me had broken so completely that I wasn't sure I'd ever be whole again. My roommate had found me in the bathroom 20 minutes later, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, and she'd held me while I fell apart. While I realized that Kieran hadn't ended things because relationships were too much, he'd ended things because I was too much, too young, too naive, too in love when he just wanted something easy and uncomplicated. After that, I'd made myself a promise. Never again would I be the girl who loved too much, who gave too much, who believed that intensity meant commitment. I would protect myself, guard my heart, keep people at a distance where they couldn't hurt me. And I did. I went to community college because university was too expensive. I worked 3 jobs to pay rent. I taught myself to make cocktails by watching YouTube videos and practicing until my hands knew the movements without thought. And slowly, painfully, I rebuilt myself into someone stronger, someone who didn't need a man to validate her existence. The Chrysalis hired me 2 years ago because I was pretty. I'm not naive enough to think otherwise. But they kept me because I was good, because I could make drinks that made people emotional, because I learned every customer's name and preference and made them feel seen, and that skill, that ability to make people feel important while keeping my own emotions locked away, that became my armor. My phone buzzes on the nightstand and I grab it, hoping for a distraction from my spiraling thoughts. But instead I see a text from an unknown number. Unknown. I meant what I said. Tomorrow night. 1 conversation. That's all I'm asking. I stare at the message, my thumb hovering over the delete button because I should block this number, should refuse to engage, should protect myself from whatever this is. But instead I type back, "Me? How did you get my number?" The response is immediate. Unknown. I have resources. And before you ask, yes, I know that's creepy, but I needed to be able to reach you. Me. For what? To continue ruining my sleep schedule with unwanted memories? Unknown. To make sure you don't change your mind about tomorrow. Me. Bold of you to assume I agreed in the first place. Unknown. You didn't say no. For you, that's basically a yes. I hate that he's right. Hate that he still knows me well enough to read between my lines. Me. 1 conversation, Kieran. That's all you get? Don't waste it. Unknown. I won't. Sleep well, Nora. Me. Too late for that. I put the phone down and lie back, staring at the ceiling again, and I realize that tomorrow night is either going to give me closure or break me all over again, and I don't know which possibility terrifies me more, because the girl I was at 18 would have forgiven him with the first apology, would have fallen back into his arms without question, would have believed that love was enough to overcome anything, but the woman I am now knows better. Knows that love without respect is just pain with a pretty name, knows that intensity without commitment is just manipulation, knows that I deserve more than being someone's distraction or nostalgia trip. The question is whether Kieran knows that too, whether whatever he wants to say tomorrow will acknowledge the woman I've become, or if he's still chasing the ghost of the girl I used to be. I guess I'll find out in approximately 18 hours, and God help me, part of me is actually looking forward to it. To seeing if he's changed as much as I have, to finding out if the man who broke me can handle the woman I rebuilt from the pieces. My last thought, before I finally drift off to sleep, is that tomorrow night is going to hurt, one way or another, because that's what happens when you let ghosts back into your life. They remind you of everything you survived, and sometimes, terrifyingly, they make you wonder if you survived the wrong things. Chapter 3. The game has changed.
Step back. Now.
Wednesday night at the Chrysalis is busier than usual. Some tech company celebrating a merger with bottles of champagne that cost more than my monthly rent, and I'm slammed from 7 p.m. until well past midnight, which is actually perfect because it means I don't have time to think about Kieran, about the conversation we're supposed to have, about the fact that my stomach has been in knots all day. But eventually the tech bros leave, stumbling and loud and over-tipping because they think money equals charm, and then it's just me and the closing routine, wiping down surfaces and restocking bottles and pretending my hands aren't shaking slightly. He arrives at exactly 2 a.m., like he's been waiting outside for the last customer to leave, and this time I'm prepared, or as prepared as you can be for facing the man who taught you what heartbreak tastes like. You came, Kieran says, sliding onto the same stool as last night. I work here, I point out, not looking at him, focusing instead on organizing the top shelf bottles with unnecessary precision. Where else would I be? You could have called in sick, could have switched shifts, could have done literally anything to avoid this conversation. I don't avoid things. I turn to face him now, meeting his eyes directly. Not anymore. That's a luxury for people who have something to lose. And I lost everything 6 years ago. So now I just face things head on. Something flickers across Kieran's face. Might be pain. That's not fair. No, I lean against the bar, crossing my arms. What's not fair about it? You ended things. You moved on. I dealt with the consequences seems pretty straightforward to me. It wasn't, he starts, then stops, runs his hand through his hair in that familiar gesture of frustration. Can I have a drink? This conversation requires alcohol. What do you want? You, he says, and the word hangs in the air between us, loaded and dangerous. But I'll settle for whatever you're pouring. I should ignore the comment, should stay professional, but instead I hear myself ask, do you always do that? Do what? Say things designed to throw people off balance. I start building an old-fashioned with sharp, precise movements. It's manipulative, Kieran, and I'm not 18 anymore, so it doesn't work. I wasn't trying to manipulate you. He watches my hands, and there's something almost hungry in his focus. I was being honest. Honesty would be ordering a drink. Flirting is saying you want me when we both know that's not why you're here. How do you know why I'm here? Because you said you wanted to explain. I slide the finished drink across to him. So explain. You have my attention for exactly as long as it takes you to finish that old-fashioned, and then I'm going home. Kieran takes a sip, his eyes closing briefly. You've gotten better at this. 2 years of practice will do that. I start my own closing routine, counting the register because I need something to do with my hands. Stop stalling. I'm not stalling. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Start with why you walked away, I say flatly. Start with why you told me you couldn't handle a relationship, and then 2 months later you were shoving your tongue down Rebecca Chen's throat at a party you knew I'd be at. Kieran sets down his glass with more force than necessary. I didn't know you'd be there. Bullshit. Nora, don't. I slam the register drawer shut. Don't Nora me like you're the reasonable one here. You wanted this conversation. You asked for one chance to explain, so explain, but don't lie to me. I'm done with pretty lies from men who think I'm too stupid to see through them. I have never thought you were stupid. Kieran's voice goes hard, sharp. Naive, yes. Too trusting, definitely, but never stupid. Great, so you just thought I was an idiot. That's so much better. That's not what I said, but it's what you meant. I move around the bar, start stacking chairs on tables with more aggression than the task requires. You thought I was this naive little girl who didn't understand how the world worked, who needed to be protected from herself, who was too young to make her own decisions about who she wanted to be with. You were 18, Kieran says, and there's frustration bleeding into his tone now. You were 18, and I was 24, and my father had just told me I needed to start taking the family business seriously, which meant getting involved in things I couldn't protect you from. I stop moving, turn to face him. What things? Things you're better off not knowing. He takes another drink. Things that would have put you in danger just by being associated with me. So you ended it to protect me. I say it flatly, without inflection. How noble. It wasn't noble. It was necessary. Kieran stands, moves around the bar toward me, and I hold my ground even though every instinct is screaming at me to retreat. My father was grooming me to take over, Nora, and that meant learning the darker parts of the business, the parts that get people killed, and having a girlfriend, especially one as young and innocent as you were. That was a liability I couldn't afford. A liability, I repeat, tasting the word. That's what I was to you? That's what my father saw you as. Kieran stops a few feet away, close enough that I can smell his cologne, the same one he wore 6 years ago. And in his world, liabilities get eliminated. The implication makes my blood run cold. He threatened me? He suggested that my focus was divided. Kieran's jaw tightens, that I needed to choose between building a future with the family or wasting time on distractions, and he made it very clear what would happen to those distractions if I chose wrong. I process this, trying to reconcile the story he's telling with the memory of him kissing Rebecca Chen. So you broke up with me to keep me safe? Yes. And then immediately started hooking up with other women to, what, prove you'd moved on? To prove to my father that I'd made the right choice, Kieran says, and there's something bitter in his voice. To show him that I was serious about the business, that I could be trusted with more responsibility, that I wasn't going to let emotions compromise my judgment. By using Rebecca Chen as a prop, by doing what I had to do to survive in a world you didn't understand, he takes another step closer. And yes, I knew it would hurt you if you found out, but I thought the alternative, you getting hurt in ways I couldn't control, was worse. You should have told me. The words come out quieter than I intended. You should have explained instead of just walking away. How? Kieran asks, and he sounds genuinely frustrated. How was I supposed to tell an 18-year-old girl that my father was a crime lord who saw her as a threat, that staying with me meant putting her in danger, that the best thing I could do for her was break her heart cleanly so she'd hate me enough to move on? I deserved the truth. You deserve to be safe, Kieran counters, and the truth would have made you want to stay, would have made you think you could handle it, and Nora, you couldn't have. Not then. You were too young, too trusting, too good for the world I was entering. And now, I challenge, am I still too young, too naive, too good for your world? Kieran looks at me, really looks at me, and I see the exact moment he registers all the ways I've changed. No, now you're dangerous. Despite everything, I almost smile. Dangerous how? Because now you know how the game works. He reaches out like he's going to touch my face, then drops his hand. Now you've built walls I can't charm my way through. Now you look at me like I'm a problem to solve instead of a man you want. And that, Nora, that's far more dangerous than anything my father could have done to you. Good, I say, meaning it. I'm glad I'm dangerous. I'm glad I learned to protect myself. I'm glad I'm not the naive girl who believed everything you said. I never lied to you. You lied by omission, I correct. You let me believe you didn't care when really you were trying to save me. And that, Kieran, that's still a lie. He doesn't have an argument for that. Just stands there looking at me with an expression I can't quite read, and for the first time since he sat down tonight, he doesn't seem to know what to say. Your time's up. I gesture to his nearly empty glass. You explained. I listened. Now you can leave. Nora, unless there's more, I challenge. Unless you have some other revelation that's going to reframe my entire understanding of what happened. Kieran is quiet for a long moment. Then he says quietly, I saw you, at that party, I saw you standing in the doorway watching me with Rebecca. And I saw your face when you realized what you were seeing. The admission steals my breath. You saw me? I saw you, he confirms. And there's something that might be shame in his voice. And I kept kissing her because I needed you to believe I'd moved on. Needed you to think I was exactly the asshole you thought I was. Needed you to hate me enough to actually let go. Well, congratulations, I say bitterly. It worked. Did it? Kieran takes a step closer, close enough now that I'd have to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Because if it worked, Nora, you wouldn't have made me that drink last night, wouldn't have agreed to this conversation, wouldn't be standing here looking at me like you can't decide if you want to hit me or kiss me. I want to hit you, I say quickly, but we both know it's not the whole truth. Liar. Kieran's voice drops lower, more intimate. You want both, and that's what's killing you. The fact that 6 years later, after everything I did, after all the ways I hurt you, you still feel something when I'm in the room. Anger, I correct. What I feel is anger. If it was just anger, you wouldn't be breathing faster right now. He's so close I can feel the heat of him. You wouldn't have your hands clenched like you're stopping yourself from reaching out. You wouldn't be looking at my mouth like you're remembering what it felt like. You're delusional. I'm observant. Kieran's hand comes up, brushes a strand of hair behind my ear, and I hate that I don't pull away. And I observe that the woman you've become is even more compelling than the girl you were. that your armor makes me want to find the cracks, that your anger is more interesting than anyone else's affection. That's a problem, I manage, even though my voice comes out too breathy. Why? Because I don't want to be interesting to you. I force myself to step back, to put distance between us. I want to be done with you. I want to stop thinking about you. I want 6 years of getting over you to actually mean something. But you haven't, Kieran says, and it's not a question. You haven't gotten over me any more than I've gotten over you, and we can pretend that this is just about closure or explanation or tying up loose ends, but we both know that's not what this is. Then what is it? It's me realizing I made a mistake, he says simply. It's me understanding that protecting you by pushing you away was the coward's choice. It's me seeing the woman you've become and wondering if maybe, just maybe, you're strong enough now to handle my world. I don't want to handle your world, I say firmly. I want nothing to do with crime lords and family businesses and danger. I want a normal life, Kieran. I want safety and peace and a future that doesn't include looking over my shoulder. Then tell me to leave, he challenges. Tell me you don't want this, that you're completely over me, that 6 years was enough time to erase everything we had. Tell me, Nora, and I'll walk out that door right now. I open my mouth to do exactly that, to send him away and protect myself from whatever this is becoming. But the words won't come, because he's right, damn him. He's right that I haven't gotten over him, that some part of me is still 18 and in love and hoping that this time will be different. I hate you, I say instead, and it comes out like a confession. I know, Kieran says softly, but that's not all you feel, is it? No, I admit, because what's the point in lying anymore? But it's the feeling I'm choosing to focus on, because the alternative is letting you break me again, and Nora, I've worked too hard to rebuild myself to let that happen. I don't want to break you. He reaches for my hand, and this time I let him take it. I want to prove that I've changed, that I'm not the 24-year-old coward who chose his father's approval over your heart. I want a chance, Nora, just one real chance to show you that this could work. It can't work, I say, but I don't pull my hand away. We're in completely different worlds, Kieran. I make cocktails, and you run criminal empires. That's not a foundation for anything real, isn't it? His thumb traces patterns on my palm, because I'm pretty sure loving each other despite the impossibility is exactly what we did 6 years ago. The only difference is now we're both old enough to know what we're choosing. The word loving does something violent to my chest, and I realize that's the first time either of us has named what this is, what it was, what it might still be. One chance, I hear myself say, even though every logical part of my brain is screaming at me to stop. But not like before. Not with secrets and lies and you making decisions for me. If we're doing this, Kieran, we're doing it as equals, with honesty and respect and me having full knowledge of what I'm walking into. Deal, Kieran says immediately, like he was waiting for exactly this. And if you hurt me again, I continue, needing him to understand. If you walk away or betray me or use me as a prop in your family drama, I'm done. Not just with you, but with the idea of you. I'll burn every memory and never look back. Understood. He brings my hand to his lips, presses a kiss to my knuckles. But I'm not going to hurt you, Nora. Not this time. This time, I'm going to prove I'm worth the risk. I should pull away, should maintain some distance, should remember that pretty words mean nothing without actions, but instead I find myself asking, what happens now? Now, Kieran says, still holding my hand like it's something precious. Now I take you to dinner tomorrow night, somewhere nice, somewhere we can talk without the ghost of who we were hanging over us. And we start over properly this time. Start over, I repeat, tasting the possibility. Like we're strangers, like we're two people who used to know each other and are learning each other again. He corrects. I want to know who you've become, Nora. I want to hear about your dreams and your plans and why you're making cocktails instead of going to university like you'd planned. The fact that he remembers that detail does something to my defenses. Dinner? I agree. But I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu out of spite. Kieran laughs, genuine and warm. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Chapter 4, Marked Territory.
I can handle myself.
Thursday night at 7, and I'm in my apartment trying to decide if the black dress reads as confident or trying too hard to impress. And the difference is subtle but important, because I don't want Kieran Baylor thinking I'm dressing up for him, even though technically I am. I decide on the black because it looks good and because it's already in my hand, and I'm finishing my makeup when my phone rings, and it's Marcus, the bartender from the Italian restaurant 3 blocks down from the Chrysalis, and we've been casually seeing each other for about 3 weeks now. Nothing serious, just dinners and conversation and a kiss at the end of the night that was pleasant, but not exactly memorable. "Hey," I answer, putting in an earring with one hand. "Nora, sorry to call last minute, but I'm near your building. Can I come up real quick? I forgot to give you back that book you lent me." I freeze, because Marcus showing up right now is terrible timing. Kieran's going to be here in less than 15 minutes, and the last thing I need is unnecessary drama, but I also can't just say no without seeming weird. "Sure, come up," I say, because refusing would be more suspicious. Marcus arrives 5 minutes later with the book in hand and that easy smile that makes him attractive in a completely safe way. He's handsome in a conventional sense, blonde hair always styled, light eyes, the kind of guy your mother would love you to bring home. And normally I'd be happy to see him, but right now all I can think about is how to get him out before Kieran shows up. "You look incredible," Marcus says, taking in my dress. "Got some event?" "Dinner," I respond vaguely, taking the book. "Thanks for bringing it. I was going to pick it up tomorrow." "No problem." He leans against my doorframe, clearly in no hurry to leave. "Who are you having dinner with? Someone special?" And that's when, of course, the doorbell rings, because the universe has a terrible sense of humor, and I know without checking that it's Kieran, because it's exactly 8 o'clock and he seems like the type of man who arrives on time as a matter of principle. "Actually," I say to Marcus, moving toward the door, it's complicated." I open the door and Kieran's there, gray suit that probably costs more than my rent, and his eyes go immediately from me to Marcus behind me, and I see the exact moment his expression changes, something dark and dangerous crossing his face before being replaced by a smile that doesn't come anywhere near his eyes. "Nora," he says my name like a statement of ownership. "Are you ready?" "Almost," I respond, very aware of Marcus still in my living room. "Kieran, this is Marcus Kieran." "The ex," Marcus says, and it's not a question. "Something like that." Kieran enters the apartment without being invited, and suddenly my space feels much smaller, much more charged. Although ex implies something ended definitively, and I'd say our situation is more ongoing. I resist the urge to roll my eyes. Marcus was just returning a book. "How convenient." Kieran looks at Marcus with the kind of attention that probably makes grown men back down. "Marcus, is it? Where do you work?" "Rossini's," Marcus answers, and I have to give him credit. He doesn't look intimidated. "I'm a bartender. Met Nora through the circuit." "I see." Kieran moves through the room like he's assessing territory, taking in details, cataloging threats. "And you two are..." "Friends," I interrupt firmly, because I'm not having this conversation with Kieran in my living room. "Marcus, thanks for the book. We'll talk later." Marcus takes the hint, waves to me and leaves, but not before shooting Kieran a look that clearly says, "Watch this one," and then it's just the two of us in my apartment, and the tension is so thick I could cut it with a knife. "Friends?" Kieran repeats, and there's something sharp in his tone. "Yes, friends." I grab my purse, check I have everything. People who spend time together, talk, occasionally go out for dinner. You must be familiar with the concept. He wants more than friendship. "Probably," I agree, applying gloss to my lips. "Most men do. It comes with the territory of being a woman who works in a bar. You learn to navigate it." "And do you want more?" Kieran asks, and there's something dangerous in the quietness of his voice. "Want to know if I want more with Marcus?" I turn to face him directly. That's an interesting question coming from someone who has absolutely no right to ask it. "Nora, no." I hold up my hand, cutting him off. "You don't get to do this, Kieran. You can't show up after 6 years, ask for a chance, and suddenly act like you have some kind of claim over my life. I've been dating people, I've been kissing people, I've been doing everything single adult women do, and none of that is your business." Something crosses his face, raw possessiveness he doesn't try to hide. "It's my business, if we're trying to build something." "Are we?" I challenge. "Because so far we've had one conversation and you promised me dinner. That doesn't make us exclusive, doesn't make me yours, doesn't give you the right to interrogate men in my apartment like they're threats to your territory." "He is a threat." Kieran takes a step closer. "Any man who looks at you is a threat. because I know exactly what they're thinking. And Nora, the idea of someone else touching you, kissing you, making you laugh the way I used to, makes me violent. The raw honesty of it hits me, but I don't let it show. That's your problem, not mine. It's our problem if you feel the same. I don't. I lie, moving toward the door. You're a complication I'm considering. Marcus is a simplicity I appreciate, and honestly, right now, simplicity is winning. Kieran reaches me before I can open the door, his hand closing around my wrist. Not squeezing, just holding. You don't want simplicity, don't I? I raise an eyebrow. Tell me, Kieran, what do I want? You want someone who challenges you. He pulls gently, bringing me closer. Someone who sees past the armor to the woman underneath. Someone who's not afraid of your strength or your sharpness. You want intensity, not mediocrity, and as safe as Marcus might seem, we both know he'd bore you within a week. Presumptuous, I say, but my voice comes out weaker than I intend. Honest, Kieran corrects, his thumb tracing circles on my wrist. And you know I'm right, because if Marcus were enough, you would have canceled on me, would have chosen the easy option instead of risking this. The fact that you're here, dressed like this, about to go out with me, says everything. I pull my wrist away, putting physical distance between us. The fact that I'm here says I honor my commitments, not that Marcus isn't enough. And Kieran, if you act like this again, if you walk into my space and act like you have rights to my romantic life, there won't be a second dinner. Am I being clear? Something shifts in his expression, recognition that he's crossed a line. Crystal clear. Good. I open the door. Now let's go to your dinner before I change my mind. The car is the same as yesterday, all expensive leather and silent technology, and we drive in silence for 10 minutes before Kieran finally speaks. I was jealous, he says simply. Seeing another man in your apartment, knowing he's been close to you in ways I haven't, made me lose control, and I apologize for that. You should, I respond, looking out the window. But I'm not going to apologize for wanting you for myself, he continues. For having thought about you every day for the past 6 years, for having compared every woman I met to the memory of an 18-year-old girl and finding them all lacking. I'm not going to apologize for being possessive, Nora, because that's who I am. Then you need to learn to control it. I turn to face him, because I'm not property. I'm not territory to be claimed. I'm a person with my own life and my own choices, and if you can't respect that, then no matter how much you want me, it's not going to work. What if I promise to try? Kieran asks. Not that I'll be perfect at it, but that I'll make a conscious effort not to act like a possessive asshole every time another man looks in your direction. Then I'd consider that a start, I allow, relaxing slightly. But Kieran, you need to understand something. I'm not available just because you decided you want me back. I have a life, I have options, and you're going to have to prove you're worth choosing over those options. Fair enough. He parks in front of the same Italian restaurant as yesterday. And Nora, I will prove it. Might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but I'll show you I'm the best choice you could make. Confident, I observe, getting out of the car. Determined, Kieran corrects, coming around to offer me his arm. There's a difference. Dinner starts tense, both of us still navigating the aftermath of the confrontation in the apartment. But gradually the conversation flows, and I find myself forgetting to be defensive, forgetting to measure every word, just existing in the moment with a man who knows me in ways nobody else does. Tell me about Marcus, Kieran says eventually, and when I narrow my eyes, he holds up his hands in surrender. Not in a possessive way, genuinely curious. You said you've been seeing him for a few weeks. Is it serious? No, I admit. He's nice, easy to be around, but there's no depth. We talk about work and movies and superficial things, but never about anything real. Never about who we actually are. And you want depth. I think so. I pick up my wine. Or maybe I'm just used to intensity and don't know how to do casual anymore. You kind of ruined that for me, got me used to conversations that last until dawn and connection that feels electric, and now everything else seems bland. Kieran smiles, but there's something sad in it. Sorry about that. Don't apologize, I say, surprisingly sincere. I'd rather know that intensity exists than settle for lukewarm, even if it makes everything harder. That makes us impossible to satisfy, Kieran observes. Or just selective, I counter. There's a difference between having high standards and being impossible to satisfy. And do I meet your standards? I look at him, really look at him, cataloging the changes and similarities, the man versus the memory. You meet some, fail miserably at others. The question is whether the ones you meet outweigh the ones you fail. And do they? Still deciding, I say honestly. Ask me again in a month, after I've seen if your actions match your words. A month, Kieran repeats. I can work with that. We finish dinner, and he drives me home. And this time, when we reach my door, there's a moment of hesitation, both of us aware that something shifted tonight, that lines were drawn and boundaries established, and the dynamic between us is solidifying into something concrete. Thanks for dinner, I say, fishing for my keys. Nora, Kieran waits until I look at him. I'm not giving up, even when you test me, even when another man shows up, even when it gets hard. I'm not walking away this time. Promises are easy, Kieran. It's keeping them that's hard. Then watch me keep them. He leans in, kisses my forehead softly. Good night, I'll call tomorrow. I watch him leave, and it's only when I'm alone in my apartment that I allow the smile to appear, because despite the tension, despite the jealousy and possessiveness and all the red flags, part of me liked seeing Kieran Baylor lose control, liked knowing that after 6 years, I can still make him feel things he can't control, and that, more than any pretty words or promises, tells me that maybe, just maybe, this is worth the risk. Chapter 5. The Illusion Shatters.
You don't talk much.
Friday night, I'm working a private event at the Meridian Tower, one of those high-rise buildings where the penthouses cost more than most people make in a lifetime, and the party is exactly what you'd expect from people with too much money and too little substance, all crystal champagne flutes and designer dresses and conversations that mean nothing while pretending to mean everything. I'm behind the mobile bar they've set up in the main room, making cocktails for people who barely taste them before setting them down. And I'm good at this, at being present but invisible, at smiling without engaging, at making drinks so perfect they become conversation pieces without me having to be one. The host is some tech CEO celebrating a merger, the kind of man who shakes hands like he's sealing your fate, and the guests are a mix of business partners and social climbers and people who exist in that strange space where work and pleasure blur into one continuous performance. I've been here 2 hours when I see him, Kieran walking in like he owns the place, which given his father's reach he probably does in some indirect way, and he's not alone. There's a woman on his arm, and she's exactly the type that makes my stomach turn. All long legs and blonde hair and a body that's been surgically enhanced to some impossible standard. Her dress is barely decent, clinging to curves that are too perfect to be entirely natural. And she's laughing at something Kieran said, her hand on his chest in a gesture that's far too familiar. I watch them from across the room, and something cold settles in my chest, because this is what I was afraid of. This is the Kieran I remember from 6 years ago. The one who showed up to parties with interchangeable women who looked like they stepped out of magazines. The one who could say intense things to me in private and then act like I didn't exist in public. The woman leans in closer, whispering something in his ear, and Kieran smiles. Not the real smile I've seen directed at me, but the performative one he uses for people he's managing, and I realize with sickening clarity that she's a prop, an accessory he brought to impress someone at this party. And the fact that he'd do that he'd use another woman the same way he used Rebecca Chen 6 years ago, makes me want to throw up. Where's the intense man who showed up at my bar? The one who said he'd changed? The one who looked at me like I was the only person in the room? Because right now all I see is a man who's comfortable with superficiality, who can stand next to a woman whose only value seems to be her appearance and act like that's enough. And I wonder if I've been deluding myself, if the connection I thought we were rebuilding was just another performance. Men, I think bitterly, they're all the same in the end. Doesn't matter how pretty the words are, doesn't matter how intense the eye contact. When it comes down to it, they'll always choose the easy visual over the complicated real. I make another drink, my hands moving automatically, but I can feel my chest tightening, can feel the familiar sensation of panic starting to creep in, because I let myself believe him. I let myself think that maybe this time would be different, and now I'm watching him with another woman, and all I can see is Rebecca Chen's hands in his hair, her mouth on his, and him kissing her back like I'd never existed. The room feels too small suddenly, too hot, too crowded, and I can't breathe properly, can't seem to get enough air into my lungs, and I know the signs of a panic attack when I feel them, have had enough of them over the years to recognize the warning signals. I signal to the other bartender that I need a break, and I slip out of the main room into the hallway, heading for the balcony I saw earlier, somewhere I can breathe, somewhere I can pull myself together before I completely fall apart in front of a room full of strangers. The hallway is blessedly empty, and I lean against the wall, pressing my palms flat against the cool surface, trying to ground myself, trying to remember the breathing exercises my therapist taught me years ago. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, out through the mouth for 4. But it's not working, because every time I close my eyes, I see Kieran with that woman, see him with Rebecca, see an endless parade of beautiful, superficial women who get his attention while I get his excuses. And the unfairness of it, the sheer fucking unfairness of falling for the same man twice and getting hurt the same way, overwhelms me completely. My vision starts to blur, the edges going dark, and I know I need to sit down, but my legs won't cooperate. And then I'm falling, actually falling. And the last thing I see before everything goes black is Kieran turning the corner, his expression transforming from confusion to alarm as he sees me collapse. I'm only out for seconds, maybe a minute, but when I come back to consciousness, I'm on the floor with Kieran kneeling beside me, his hands on my face, and there's genuine fear in his eyes, not the controlled mask he wears for everyone else, but raw, unfiltered terror. "Nora, talk to me. What happened?" His voice is rough, urgent. "I'm fine." I try to push him away, but I'm too weak. "Go back to your date." "My what?" Kieran looks genuinely confused, then understanding crosses his face. "Fuck! You saw me with Vanessa." "I don't care," I lie, trying to sit up and failing. "Just leave me alone." "Not happening." Kieran scoops me up before I can protest, carrying me down the hallway like I weigh nothing. "There's a private suite on this floor. You need to lie down." "I need to get back to work," I argue, but my voice is weak even to my own ears. "You just passed out. You're not going anywhere except somewhere you can rest." He uses his elbow to push open a door, and suddenly we're in a bedroom that's bigger than my entire apartment, all floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture, and a bed that looks like it costs more than I make in a year. Kieran sets me down on the bed gently, and I hate that even now, even angry and hurt and feeling like an idiot, his touch makes me feel safe, makes some part of me want to curl into him and never let go. "I'm calling a doctor." He pulls out his phone. "Don't," I say firmly. "I'm fine. It was just a panic attack. I've had them before." Kieran's expression darkens. "How often?" "That's none of your business." I try to stand, and he puts a hand on my shoulder, keeping me seated. "Like hell it's not." He sits down beside me, close enough that I can smell his cologne. "Nora, talk to me. What triggered this?" And something in me just breaks. Maybe it's the panic attack leaving me vulnerable. Maybe it's weeks of holding everything in. Maybe it's just that I'm tired of pretending I'm not hurt. But suddenly I'm crying. Actually crying. Tears streaming down my face as 6 years of pain comes pouring out. "You," I say, and my voice breaks. "You triggered this. Seeing you with her. Seeing you do exactly what you did 6 years ago. Showing up with some beautiful, empty woman on your arm like that's all that matters. Like depth and connection and everything we've been building means nothing compared to a good body and a pretty face." "Nora." "No, let me finish." I wipe at my tears angrily. "I let myself believe you. I let myself think that maybe you'd changed, that maybe this time would be different. And then I see you with her, and it's like being 18 again, like watching you with Rebecca and realizing that I was never enough, that I'll never be enough because I'm not willing to be some accessory you parade around to impress people." "Is that what you think?" Kieran's voice is tight. "That I brought Vanessa because I wanted to?" "Didn't you?" I challenge, looking at him directly. "You chose to bring her. Chose to have her hang all over you, chose to smile and laugh and act like she was exactly where she belonged." "Vanessa is the daughter of a business associate," Kieran says carefully. "Her father insisted she accompany me tonight because he's trying to broker a deal and thinks having her on my arm makes me look more established. I don't want her there, Nora. I want you there, but I can't bring you to these things. Not yet, not while my world is still dangerous." "Convenient excuse," I say bitterly. "It's not an excuse, it's reality." Kieran runs his hand through his hair in frustration. "You want honesty? Fine, here's honesty. When I was younger, when I first left you, I was exactly what you think I am. I went to parties and hooked up with women who didn't mean anything because it was easier than feeling what I felt for you. I was a player. Nora, I'm not going to deny that. I used women and let them use me and convinced myself that shallow was better than deep because deep hurt too much. The admission steals my breath. So I was right. You were right about who I was," Kieran corrects. Past tense, because somewhere between then and now, I realized that empty is exactly that. Empty, that all those women and parties and meaningless hookups left me feeling more alone than I'd ever felt. And you know what the worst part was? What? I whisper. Every single one of them. Every woman I kissed or touched or tried to lose myself in, I was comparing them to you. Kieran's voice drops lower, more intense, to the way you laughed at my stupid jokes, to the way you'd argue with me about everything, to the way you looked at me like I was something more than just my father's son. And Nora, they all fell short, every single one of them, because none of them were you. Then why did you do it? I ask, and I can hear the pain in my own voice. Why did you parade them around if you knew they weren't what you wanted? Because I was young and stupid, and convinced myself that what I wanted didn't matter. Kieran takes my hand, and this time, I don't pull away. My father had plans for me, expectations, and those expectations didn't include an 18-year-old girl who made me feel things I wasn't supposed to feel. So I pushed you away to protect you, and then I tried to convince myself I'd made the right choice by replacing you with women who didn't make me feel anything at all. That's fucked up, I say, but there's less anger in it now. I know, Kieran agrees. I know it's fucked up. I know I handled everything wrong. I know that seeing me with Rebecca destroyed you, and I'm sorry, Nora. I'm so fucking sorry for not understanding how much that would hurt you. You looked right at me, I admit quietly. At that party, when I saw you kissing her, you looked directly at me and kept kissing her, and that's what broke me. Not that you'd moved on, but that you saw me seeing it and didn't stop. Kieran's expression crumbles. I thought if you hated me enough, you'd move on properly. I thought seeing me with someone else would make it easier for you to let go. I didn't understand that all I was doing was teaching you not to trust me. Mission accomplished, I say with bitter humor. I was 24 and an idiot, Kieran says, and I'm not using my age as an excuse. I'm just stating a fact. I didn't know how to handle what I felt for you, didn't know how to balance my father's world with wanting something real. So I chose the coward's way out and pretended the real thing didn't exist. And now, I ask, what's different now? Now I'm not 24, Kieran says simply. Now I run the business instead of my father. Now I make the decisions. And Nora, the decision I'm making is that I want you, not as a secret, not as something I hide away, but as the person who matters most to me. You brought another woman to a party, I point out. I brought a business obligation to a business event, Kieran corrects, and I hated every second of it. Hated having her touch me, hated pretending to smile, hated knowing that you might see and think exactly what you thought. But Nora, that world, those obligations, they're part of who I am, and I can't promise they'll disappear just because I want you. So what are you promising? I ask, needing clarity. I'm promising that when it matters, when it's real, you're the one I choose. Kieran brings my hand to his lips. I'm promising that every woman like Vanessa is a business transaction and nothing more. I'm promising that I will never make you feel the way I made you feel at 18, like you were replaceable or insufficient or anything less than the most important person in my life. Pretty words, I say, but my voice wavers. True words, Kieran insists, and I'll prove them. Not tonight, not with grand gestures, but every day going forward. I'll show you that you're not just someone I want, you're someone I need. I look at him, really look at him, and I see the sincerity in his eyes, see the vulnerability he's offering, and I realize that this is what I wanted. Not perfection, but honesty. Not a man without a past, but a man who's willing to acknowledge his mistakes and work to do better. I need time, I say finally. I need to process this, to figure out if I can actually trust you again. Take all the time you need, Kieran says. I'm not going anywhere. And if another Vanessa appears, I challenge. I'll tell you about it beforehand, Kieran promises. I'll explain why she's there, what the situation is, and you can decide if you're okay with it, or if it crosses a line. No more surprises, Nora. No more seeing things and having to guess what they mean. Okay, I say quietly, and I feel some of the tension leave my body. Okay, we can work with that. Kieran pulls me closer, and this time I let him. Let myself lean into his warmth, let myself accept the comfort he's offering, and for the first time since I saw him with that woman, I feel like maybe, just maybe, this is going to be okay. You scared the hell out of me, Kieran says softly, his hand stroking my hair. Seeing you fall like that, not knowing if you were okay. I'm tougher than I look, I say. I know, Kieran's voice is warm. But even tough people need someone to catch them sometimes. And Nora, I want to be the one who catches you. Always. The sentiment is almost too much, too intense, but instead of pulling away, I find myself asking, why did you really come back? After 6 years? Why now? Kieran is quiet for a long moment, and I can feel his heart beating against my cheek. Because I couldn't stay away anymore. Because every day without you felt like I was missing something essential. Because my world is dangerous and difficult and dark. And you, Nora, you're the only light I've ever had. That's a lot of pressure, I say with a slight laugh. Then share it with me, Kieran suggests. Let me be your light too. Let us figure this out together, instead of you carrying everything alone. And lying there in his arms, feeling safe for the first time in 6 years, I find myself thinking that maybe, just maybe, I'm willing to try. Chapter 6. When Walls Fall.
This isn't smart.
We stay like that for a while, me in his arms, both of us breathing in the quiet of the room, and it's the first time since he walked back into my life that I feel something close to peace, like maybe all the chaos and hurt and confusion is leading somewhere that makes sense. I need to tell you something, Kieran says eventually, his voice low against my hair. The real reason I came back. I thought you said you couldn't stay away. I shift slightly so I can see his face. That's true, but it's not the whole truth. He takes a breath, and I can feel the tension in his body. 3 months ago, my father died. I pull back to look at him properly. Kieran, Don't, he cuts me off gently. Don't apologize. We weren't close. Not in any real way. He was my father, but he was also my boss, my critic, the person whose approval I spent my entire life chasing and never quite reaching. And when he died, I inherited everything. The business, the responsibilities, the power, all of it. That must have been overwhelming. It was liberating, Kieran says, and there's something raw in his admission. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to answer to anyone, didn't have to make choices based on what he wanted or expected. I could just be me. And Nora, the first thing I wanted when I had that freedom was you. The honesty of it steals my breath. Why? Because you're the only person who ever made me feel like I was enough just as I am. Kieran's hand comes up to cut my face. Not because of my name, or my money, or my power, but because of who I actually am underneath all of that. And I realized that I'd spent 6 years trying to be the man my father wanted me to be, and in doing that, I'd lost the only person who ever made me want to be better. Kieran, I whisper, not sure what to say. I'm not good at this, he continues, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. I'm not good at being vulnerable or admitting I need someone, but Nora, I need you. I need your sharp edges and your refusal to be impressed by superficial things. I need the way you challenge me and call me out and make me work for every piece of trust. I need you because without you, everything else is just noise. That's not fair, I say, but my voice shakes. You can't just say things like that and expect me not to fall apart. Then fall apart, Kieran says softly. Fall apart and let me catch you. Fall apart and trust that I'll put you back together. Fall apart and know that this time, I'm not going anywhere. And something in me just surrenders. All the walls I've spent 6 years building crumble in the face of his honesty. And I realize that I'm tired of protecting myself, tired of being strong and independent and refusing to need anyone, tired of pretending that I don't want exactly what he's offering. I'm scared, I admit. I'm terrified that you'll hurt me again. I know. Kieran leans his forehead against mine, and I can't promise I won't make mistakes. Can't promise everything will be easy, but Nora, I can promise that hurting you will never be intentional, that I will fight every day to be worthy of the trust you're giving me, that I will choose you over and over again even when it's difficult. You really mean that, I say, and it's not a question. I really mean that, Kieran confirms. And I'll prove it, not just tonight, but every day going forward. I'll show you that this isn't just words, it's commitment. I look at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, at the vulnerability he's offering, and I make a decision. Maybe it's reckless, maybe I'll regret it, but in this moment I choose to trust, choose to believe, choose to let myself want this. Tell me about Italy, Kieran says suddenly, pulling back slightly. Tell me about Manarola and why it matters to you. The change in subject catches me off guard. What? I want to hear it again. He smiles, and it's genuine. I want to hear you talk about your dreams with that light in your eyes, the way you used to when you were 18. It's silly, I start, but he shakes his head. It's not silly, it's you and Nora, everything about you matters to me. So I tell him about how I've always imagined Manarola as this perfect place where colorful houses cascade down cliffs to meet the ocean, where the sun is warm and the gelato is cold and people sit in piazzas just existing without the constant pressure to be more, do more, achieve more. Whenever I feel overwhelmed, I explain, I close my eyes and picture myself there, walking through narrow streets, eating pizza that's simple but perfect, watching the sunset paint everything gold. It's my safe place, even though I've never been there. I miss this, Kieran says softly, and there's wonder in his voice. I miss the way you love things, completely and without reservation, the way you can find beauty in places you've never been and experiences you've never had. I was afraid that growing up would have made you cynical, would have taken this away. It almost did, I admit. There were days when imagining Manarola felt pointless, when dreaming about anything felt like setting myself up for disappointment, but I held on to it because it was mine, because no one could take it from me. Let me take you there, Kieran says. Really take you. Not someday, not eventually, but soon. Let me show you Manarola and watch you fall in love with it in person. You're serious, I realize. Completely serious. Kieran's hand finds mine. I want to see your face when you taste real Italian gelato for the first time. I want to walk those narrow streets with you. I want to watch the sunset and know that I'm the one who gets to share these moments with you. That's a big gesture, I say carefully. It's not a gesture. It's a promise, Kieran corrects. It's me showing you that your dreams matter to me as much as mine do, that what makes you happy makes me happy, that I'm invested in your joy, not just in having you. And that's when I know, really know, that this is different, that he's different, that whatever we're building is worth the risk because it's based on something real, something that survived 6 years apart and came back stronger. Kiss me, I say, and my voice is steadier than I feel. Kieran's eyes darken. Nora, kiss me, I repeat, reaching up to touch his face. Stop holding back. Stop being careful. Just kiss me like you've wanted to since you walked into my bar. If I start, Kieran warns, his voice rough, I won't want to stop. Good, I say simply, and then I close the distance between us. The kiss is nothing like I remember. It's better, more intense. 6 years of longing compressed into a single moment of connection. His hands are in my hair, on my waist, pulling me closer like he's trying to merge us into one person. And I'm kissing him back with everything I have, all the anger and hurt and love I've been holding on to pouring out in the press of lips and tongue and teeth. We break apart only long enough to breathe, and then we're kissing again. And it's desperate and consuming and exactly what I need, what we both need, to burn away the past and start fresh. Are you sure? Kieran asks against my mouth, and I can feel him trembling with restraint. I'm sure. I pull him closer. I'm sure about this. About you. About us. What happens next is inevitable, natural, like gravity finally pulling us back together after years of resistance. Clothes disappear, slowly, reverently, each piece revealing more of who we've become. And Kieran looks at me like I'm something precious, something worth cherishing. You're beautiful, he says, and it's not the empty compliment I've heard from other men. It's observation, acknowledgement, wonder. So are you, I respond, tracing the scar on his jaw, the new lines around his eyes, all the ways time has changed him. When we finally come together, it's overwhelming, not just physically, but emotionally, like every cell in my body recognizes him, welcomes him, has been waiting for exactly this. His hands are gentle despite the intensity, learning my body with the same focus he brings to everything else, and I'm lost in the sensation of being wanted, being seen, being chosen. We move together like a conversation, question and answer, give and take, finding rhythm in the chaos, and when pleasure builds, it's shared, simultaneous, both of us falling over that edge together while holding on to each other like anchors. After, we lie tangled together, breathing hard, and I feel fundamentally changed, like something that was broken has finally been repaired, like a missing piece has clicked back into place. Stay, Kieran says quietly, his arms tightening around me. I'm not going anywhere, I promise, and I mean it. No, he clarifies, I mean stay. Not just tonight. Stay in my life. Stay in my space. Stay as the person I come home to and wake up with and build a future with. I prop myself up to look at him. Are you asking me to move in with you? Eventually, Kieran smiles, but right now I'm just asking you to stay here tonight in this bed. in my arms, and let me prove that waking up together is something we're both good at. That's manipulative, I say, but I'm smiling. That's strategic, Kieran corrects, pulling me back down. There's a difference. I settle against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and I realize that for the first time in 6 years, I feel completely at peace, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Kieran, I say into the quiet. Yeah? Thank you for coming back, I admit. Thank you for not giving up, for pushing past my walls, for being brave enough to be vulnerable. Thank you for letting me. Kieran's hand strokes my hair. Thank you for giving me a chance I probably didn't deserve, for seeing past my mistakes to who I'm trying to be. We drift off like that, wrapped in each other, and my last conscious thought is that this feels like a beginning, like everything before was just prologue, and the real story is finally starting. When I wake up, it's still dark, and Kieran is beside me, awake, watching me with an expression I can't quite read. What? I ask, voice rough with sleep. Nothing, he says softly. Just memorizing this, you in my bed, actually here, actually mine. Possessive, even in the middle of the night, I tease. Always, Kieran admits without shame. But Nora, you're mine in the ways that matter. Not as property, but as choice. You chose me, and that's more valuable than anything I could claim. Smooth talker, I accuse, but I'm smiling. Honest talker, he corrects, and then he's kissing me again, and we're losing ourselves in each other once more, and I realize that this is what I've been missing, not just physical connection, but emotional intimacy. Not just wanting, but being wanted. Not just loving, but being loved in return. The night passes in moments of intensity and quiet, conversation and silence, and by the time dawn starts to lighten the sky, we've talked about everything. His childhood, my fears, our hopes for the future, and I know with absolute certainty that this is real, that we're building something that will last. I love you, Kieran says as the first rays of sun hit the windows. I've loved you since you were 18, and I'll love you when we're 80. And Nora, I need you to know that before we go any further. I love you too, I say, and it's the first time I've said it out loud in 6 years. I never stopped. Even when I hated you, even when I tried to move on, I never stopped loving you. Then let's not waste any more time. Kieran pulls me closer. Let's start living the life we should have had 6 years ago. And lying there in his arms, watching the sunrise paint the room gold, I think about Manarola and colorful houses, and the dream I've held on to for so long, and I realize that maybe home isn't a place at all. Maybe home is a person, and I've finally found my way back. Chapter 7, Consequences.
They're staring again.
I wake up properly around 9 a.m., sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and for a moment I forget where I am. Forget everything except the warm weight of Kieran's arm across my waist and the sense of complete rightness that comes with being exactly where I'm supposed to be. Then I hear his phone buzzing, insistent and angry, and reality comes crashing back. Kieran groans, reaching for the device on the nightstand, and I see his expression change as he looks at the screen, something dark and worried replacing the contentment that was there moments ago. What's wrong? I ask, sitting up and pulling the sheet with me. 17 missed calls, Kieran says, scrolling through notifications, from people I shouldn't be ignoring. The party, I realize, last night coming back in fragments. You left the negotiation. I left everything. Kieran sets down his phone, runs his hand through his hair in that gesture I've come to recognize as stress. When I saw you collapse, nothing else mattered. I didn't think about consequences or business obligations or who I was leaving hanging. I just needed to make sure you were okay. Kieran, I say carefully, because I can hear the problem in his voice. How bad is this? Before he can answer, his phone rings again, and this time he answers it, his voice going cold and professional in a way that makes him seem like a stranger. Victor. I can't hear the other side of the conversation, but I watch Kieran's face tighten, watch his jaw clench, and I know whatever's being said isn't good. I understand, Kieran says finally. I'll handle it. Give me 2 hours. He hangs up and looks at me, and there's genuine concern in his eyes. We have a problem. Tell me, I say, because I'm not 18 anymore, and I refuse to be protected from information I deserve to have. The man I was negotiating with last night, Dmitry Volkov, he's not someone you walk away from without explanation. Kieran stands, starts gathering his clothes. And Vanessa's father, Richard Chen, he's even less forgiving. He brought his daughter specifically to facilitate a deal between our organizations, and I disappeared with no word, no warning, nothing. Because of me. I realize, something cold settling in my stomach. Because you needed me, Kieran corrects, pulling on his pants. And Nora, I'd make the same choice again, but that doesn't mean there won't be consequences. What kind of consequences? Kieran is quiet for a moment, and when he speaks, his voice is careful. The kind that means I need to do damage control. Fast. The kind that means questions are being asked about where I went and who I was with. They know about me, I say, and it's not a question. There are security cameras throughout the building, Kieran admits. And people who work for Volkov saw me carrying you to this suite, saw me not come back out. By now, they've put together that I abandoned a multi-million-dollar negotiation for a bartender. And Nora, in my world, that looks like weakness. The way he says bartender makes something ugly twist in my chest. Is that how they're referring to me? Yes, Kieran doesn't lie to me, and I appreciate that even as it hurts. To them, you're nobody. Just some girl who serves drinks, and the fact that I chose you over business is being seen as either stupidity or vulnerability, both of which are dangerous. So I'm a liability again, I say, and I can't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Just like 6 years ago. No. Kieran sits back down on the bed, takes my hands. 6 years ago, I let my father dictate what was a liability. This time, I'm making my own choices, but Nora, I need you to understand that my world is exactly as dangerous as I warned you it would be. People like Volkov and Chen don't forgive disrespect easily. Are you in danger? I ask, because that's what matters. I can handle myself, Kieran says. But you, Nora, you're not protected. You're not part of this world. And if they decide you're a weakness, they can exploit. If they think hurting you will hurt me, then yes, you could be in danger. The reality of what he's saying hits me, and I realize that last night, when we were tangled together and making promises, I didn't fully comprehend what I was signing up for. I knew abstractly that his life was complicated, but knowing and experiencing are very different things. What do we do? I ask, forcing myself to stay calm. I need to go handle this. Kieran stands again, finishes dressing. I need to smooth things over with Volkov, apologize to Chen, make it clear that last night was an anomaly, not a pattern. By telling them I don't matter, I say flatly. By telling them whatever keeps you safe, Kieran corrects. And Nora, I know that sounds bad. I know it seems like I'm minimizing what we have, but in this world, the less important you seem, the safer you are. That's fucked up, I say, but I understand the logic. It is, Kieran agrees. But it's reality, at least for now. At least until I can consolidate power enough that people don't see you as leverage. How long will that take? I don't know, Kieran admits, and I can hear the frustration in his voice. Weeks, maybe months. My father just died, Nora. I'm still establishing myself as the actual authority. There are people who think I'm too young, too soft, too different from him, and they're looking for any excuse to challenge my leadership. And I gave them one, I realize. No, Kieran cups my face. I gave them one by choosing you, and Nora, I'd do it again in a heartbeat, but I need you to trust me to handle this. I need you to let me manage the politics while you stay safe. There's that word again. Safe? Like I'm something fragile that needs protecting, and I feel myself bristling, even though I know he means well. I can take care of myself, I say firmly. I know you can, Kieran says, but there's a difference between regular danger and the kind of danger that comes from making enemies of men like Volkov. These aren't guys who fight fair, Nora. They go after families, friends, anyone who matters. And if they think you matter to me, they won't hesitate. So, what are you saying? I ask, even though I'm afraid I know the answer. I'm saying I need you to be careful, Kieran says. I'm saying, don't walk home alone. Don't go anywhere unfamiliar. Keep your phone on you at all times. I'm saying, let me assign someone to watch your building, just until this blows over. You want to put security on me, I say, and it's not a question. I want to make sure you're protected, Kieran corrects. There's a difference. Is there? I pull away from him, suddenly feeling claustrophobic, because, from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're trying to control my life, decide where I go and what I do and who watches me. And Kieran, I didn't sign up for that. What did you sign up for? Kieran asks, and there's challenge in his voice. Because this is my world, Nora. This is what it means to be with me. It means security and precautions, and yes, sometimes it means limits on your freedom, because the alternative is you getting hurt. I'm not a child, I say, anger bleeding into my voice. I don't need you making decisions for me about my own safety. Then what do you need? Kieran asks, and he sounds genuinely frustrated. Because I'm trying to figure out how to keep you safe without making you feel controlled. But Nora, those two things are in direct conflict right now. Before I can answer, his phone rings again. And this time, when he looks at the screen, his expression goes carefully blank. I have to take this. He steps out of the room, and I'm left alone with my thoughts, with the growing realization that last night I fell in love with a man whose life is infinitely more complicated than I understood. And now I have to decide if I'm strong enough to handle that complication, or if this was a mistake from the start. I get dressed in last night's clothes, feeling rumpled and out of place, and I'm checking my own phone when Kieran comes back in, and his expression tells me whatever that call was, it made things worse. Talk to me, I say. That was Chen, Kieran says tightly. He wants a meeting today, and he's bringing Vanessa. He wants an explanation for why I abandoned them, and more importantly, he wants assurance that my personal life won't interfere with business again. And if you can't give him that assurance, then the deal falls through, and with it, several other agreements that depend on Chen's cooperation. Kieran's frustration is visible now. And Nora, I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you so you understand why I need to handle this carefully. I understand, I say, even though part of me wants to argue that if a business deal depends on him bringing the right woman to parties, maybe it's not a deal worth having. Vanessa is going to be a problem, Kieran continues. Her father had hopes that she and I could be, He basically wanted to marry her off to secure the alliance, and when I showed no interest, he was already annoyed. Now, with you in the picture, he's going to see it as a direct insult. Because I'm just a bartender, I say, and I can't keep the edge out of my voice. Because you're not part of this world, Kieran corrects. And Nora, I know how that sounds. I know it seems like I'm saying you're not good enough, but that's not what I mean. I mean, you're not entangled in the politics and power plays and compromises that define people like Chen and Volkov. You're separate from all of that. And that's actually what makes you valuable to me, but to them, it just makes you irrelevant. Lucky me, I say bitterly. Kieran closes the distance between us, takes my face in his hands. Listen to me. What they think doesn't matter. What matters is that you're safe and we figure out how to make this work. And yes, that might mean some short-term compromises, might mean I have to play politics in ways you won't like, but Nora, none of that changes how I feel about you. How do I know that? I ask quietly. How do I know you won't decide it's easier to just go back to women like Vanessa, women who fit into your world without complication? Because I tried that for 6 years and it made me miserable, Kieran says simply. Because fitting into my world isn't the same as making my world worth living in. And Nora, you make it worth it. You make all of this, the stress and danger and political bullshit bearable because at the end of the day, I get to come home to you. We don't even live together, I point out. Yet, Kieran says. We don't live together yet. But Nora, that's the future I'm working toward. A future where you're not hidden or protected or kept separate, where you're just mine and everyone knows it and accepts it. I just need time to get there. How much time? I don't know, Kieran admits. But I'm asking you to trust me, to give me the space to handle this mess, while knowing that every move I make is designed to get us to a place where we can be together without you being in danger. I look at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, at the exhaustion that's starting to show around the edges, and I realize that he's caught between two worlds just as much as I am, caught between the life he inherited and the life he wants. And maybe that's not his fault any more than my fear is mine. Okay, I say finally. Okay, I'll trust you, but Kieran, I need you to keep me informed. I need to know what's happening, what the threats are, what you're doing to handle them. I can't be in the dark about this. Deal. Kieran kisses me softly. No more secrets. No more protection through ignorance. I'll tell you everything, even the parts that scare me. Especially those parts, I correct. Especially those. Kieran agrees, and then his phone buzzes again and he sighs. I have to go. The meeting with Chen is in an hour and I need to prepare. Can I have someone drive you home? I can get myself home, I say, but he's already shaking his head. Not negotiable, Kieran says firmly. My driver will take you. And Nora, please, just for today, don't argue with me about security. I need to know you're safe so I can focus on fixing this. Fine, I agree, because I can pick my battles and this one isn't worth fighting. But Kieran, fix this fast, because I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Neither do I, Kieran promises. And then he's gone, leaving me alone in a room that suddenly feels too big, too empty, too full of consequences I didn't fully consider. I gather my things and head downstairs, where a driver is already waiting, professional and silent. And as we pull away from the building, I look back at the tower, where everything changed last night. And I wonder if choosing love was brave or stupid. I guess I'll find out soon enough. Chapter 8, Love in Crisis.
This was inevitable.
The next few days are strange. I go back to work at the Chrysalis because I refuse to hide, refuse to let fear dictate my life. But everything feels different now, charged with an awareness I can't shake, like I'm constantly waiting for something bad to happen. Kieran calls me every few hours, texts me constantly, always asking where I am, who I'm with, if I've noticed anything unusual, and while part of me appreciates the concern, another part feels suffocated by the attention. Tuesday night, the bar is busy. Some corporate event that has the place packed with men in expensive suits, ordering drinks they barely taste, and I'm in my element, making cocktails with the automatic precision that comes from years of practice, when one of them leans too far across the bar, invading my space in that way. Drunk men always do. "You're too beautiful to be working here," he says, and his breath smells like whiskey and poor choices. "Let me take you somewhere nice, show you how a real man treats a woman." I'm flattered, I say with the professional smile I've perfected, stepping back to maintain distance. "But I'm seeing someone." "He doesn't have to know," the guy persists, and I'm about to shut him down more firmly when I feel a presence behind me, and I don't need to turn around to know it's Kieran. "She said no." Kieran's voice is cold, dangerous, and when I glance back, I see him standing there in a suit that probably costs more than this guy makes in a month, radiating the kind of quiet menace that makes smart people back down. The drunk guy takes one look at Kieran and suddenly remembers he has somewhere else to be, and I'm left facing a man who looks like he's barely controlling his temper. "What are you doing here?" I ask, mixing drinks for other customers like this is normal, like having a crime lord show up at my workplace is just another Tuesday. "Making sure you're safe," Kieran says, and there's something possessive in the way he's watching the room, cataloging threats, assessing dangers. "I can handle drunk assholes," I point out. "I've been doing it for 2 years without your help." "That was before they knew you mattered to me," Kieran counters, and I can hear the frustration in his voice. "Nora, I told you things would be different. I told you there would be consequences. And I told you I'm not 18 anymore." I set down the shaker with more force than necessary. "I don't need you hovering, Kieran. I need you to trust that I can take care of myself." "It's not about trust." Kieran moves closer, lowering his voice so only I can hear. "It's about reality. You're a target now, whether you want to be or not, and pretending otherwise is dangerous." "So what do you want me to do?" I challenge. "Quit my job, hide in my apartment, let you control every aspect of my life because your world is complicated?" "I want you to be reasonable," Kieran says tightly. "I want you to accept that sometimes protection isn't about control. It's about keeping you alive." "You're being dramatic." I start to turn away, but he catches my wrist, not hard, just firm enough to keep me facing him. "Am I?" His eyes are intense. "Because yesterday, someone asked questions about you at the restaurant 3 blocks from here. Someone who works for Volkov, someone who shouldn't know you exist. So tell me, Nora, am I being dramatic or am I being realistic about the danger you're in?" The information hits me like ice water. "What kind of questions?" "Where you live, where you work, who you're close to." Kieran's jaw tightens. "The kind of questions people ask when they're gathering intel, when they're looking for leverage." "Fuck," I say quietly, because now it's real. Now it's not just abstract danger, but concrete threat, and I feel my carefully maintained calm starting to crack. "Exactly." Kieran's thumb traces my pulse point. "So please, please let me protect you. Let me put security on your building. Let me make sure you're safe. I'm not trying to control you, Nora. I'm trying to keep you alive." I look at him, at the genuine fear barely hidden behind his controlled expression, and I realize that this is killing him, that watching me go about my normal life while knowing I'm in danger is torture. And maybe I need to meet him halfway. "Okay," I say finally. "Okay, security on my building. But Kieran, I'm not quitting my job. I'm not changing my entire life because some asshole is asking questions." "Fair enough," Kieran agrees, and I can see some of the tension leave his shoulders. "But if anything feels off, if anyone approaches you or makes you uncomfortable, you call me immediately. Promise me." "I promise," I say, and then the bar manager is signaling that I need to get back to work, and Kieran reluctantly lets me go, but I can feel his eyes on me for the rest of the night, watching, protecting, and for the first time I understand that this is what loving him means: constant vigilance, constant awareness, constant navigation of a world where danger is always one wrong move away. The attack happens 3 days later, Thursday night. I'm closing the bar, it's just me and one other bartender, and we're doing the usual routine when the front door opens despite the very obvious closed sign. We're closed, I call out without looking up, assuming it's another entitled customer who thinks rules don't apply to them. I know, a voice says, and something in my instincts screams, danger. I look up, and there are 2 men, both wearing suits that are just slightly wrong. Too cheap for this neighborhood, too obvious, and when I meet their eyes, I see nothing. No emotion, no humanity, just cold calculation. The owner isn't here, I say carefully, reaching for my phone under the bar. If you need something, you'll have to come back tomorrow. We're not here for the owner, the taller one says, moving closer. We're here to deliver a message. I don't know what you're talking about, I say, but my finger finds the emergency button on my phone, the one that goes directly to Kieran. Sure you do. The second man pulls something from his jacket, and I think it's going to be a gun, think this is it. This is how I die, but instead it's an envelope. For Kieran Baylor, from Mr. Volkov, he'll know what it means. They set the envelope on the bar, and for a moment I think they're going to leave, think this was just intimidation, just a show of force. But then the tall one reaches out, grabs my wrist, and there's cruelty in his smile. Mr. Volkov also wanted us to make sure Mr. Baylor understands how easy it would be to take things he cares about. His grip tightens, painful now. How vulnerable those things are, how quickly they could disappear. Let go of me, I say, and my voice is steadier than I feel. Or what? He laughs, and then he's yanking me forward, pulling me against the bar, and the other one is moving around to block the exit, and I realize with crystalline clarity that they're not just here to deliver a message, they're here to hurt me. I do what I've been trained to do, what every woman learns living in a city. I fight back. My knee comes up hard between his legs, and when he doubles over, I grab the nearest bottle and smash it against his head. Not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to make him let go. The second man lunges at me, but I'm already moving, already running, and I make it to the back door before he catches me, his hand fisting in my hair, yanking me back with enough force that I feel something in my neck protest. Stupid bitch, he growls. And then there's a knife, actual knife, and I'm thinking about how ironic it is that I survived drunk assholes and difficult customers only to die because I fell in love with the wrong man. But before he can do whatever he's planning, the back door explodes inward. Actual explosion of wood and force, and Kieran is there with 4 other men, all of them armed, all of them looking like violence personified. What happens next is brutal and efficient. Kieran's men take down both attackers in under 30 seconds, professional and terrifying, and then Kieran is with me, his hands on my face, checking for injuries, and there's something feral in his eyes that I've never seen before. In Chapter 9, Power Plays and Protection.
We do this carefully.
Are you hurt? His voice is rough, barely controlled. I'm okay, I say, but I'm shaking now. Adrenaline crashing through my system. Kieran, they said, I know what they said. Kieran cuts me off, pulling me into his chest. I heard everything. I've had a wire on you since Tuesday. I heard them threaten you, and I swear to God, Nora, they're going to regret ever touching you. I pull back to look at him. You wired me? Without telling me. Yes, Kieran doesn't apologize. And before you get angry about privacy and autonomy, that wire is the only reason I got here in time. The only reason those men are in custody, instead of you being in a hospital, or worse. I want to argue, want to be furious about the violation, but he's right. The wire saved my life, and I'm too shaken to fight about it right now. What happens now? I ask instead. Now, Kieran's expression goes cold, dangerous. Now I remind Volkov and everyone else in this city why you don't fuck with what's mine. Now I show them that protecting you isn't a weakness. It's a line they crossed at their own peril. There's something terrifying about the way he says it, like he's not a man anymore, but something darker, something capable of violence I can only imagine, and I should be scared, should be running, but instead I feel safe, protected, like nothing can touch me while he's standing between me and the world. Take me with you, I say, and Kieran's eyes widen slightly. What? Whatever you're doing, whatever response you're planning, I want to be there. I meet his gaze directly. I'm tired of being protected from your world, tired of being kept separate, if I'm in danger anyway. If people are targeting me because of you, then I want to stand beside you, not behind you. Nora, Kieran starts, and I can hear the hesitation. No, I cut him off. You told me you wanted me as an equal, as a partner, so treat me like one. Let me see who you really are, what you're really capable of, and let me decide if I can handle it. Kieran studies me for a long moment, and I can see him weighing options, considering consequences, and then something shifts in his expression, something that looks like respect. Okay, he says finally. Okay, you want to see my world? I'll show you. But Nora, once you see this, once you understand what I'm capable of, there's no going back to the version of me you've been imagining. Good, I say firmly, because I don't want illusions. I want truth, even if it's ugly. Kieran takes my hand, leads me out to where several black SUVs are waiting, and as we drive through the city, I realize this is the moment everything changes. This is where I stop being the girl he's protecting and start being the woman standing beside him, and terrifying as that is, it's also exactly what I want. We end up at a warehouse on the edge of the industrial district, and inside there's a whole setup. Men in suits, the two attackers tied to chairs, and in the center of it all, Kieran transforms into someone I barely recognize, all cold authority and controlled violence. Volkov sent you, Kieran says, and it's not a question. The tall one spits blood. Fuck you. Kieran doesn't react, just nods to one of his men who does something I don't quite see but makes the attacker scream, and I feel my stomach turn, but I force myself to watch, force myself not to look away. Let me be very clear. Kieran's voice is cold, precise. You came into my city, into a place under my protection, and you put your hands on someone I love. And gentlemen, that was a mistake you're going to regret for however long you have left. Volkov will, the second man starts, but Kieran cuts him off. Volkov will do nothing, Kieran says calmly, because by the time you get back to him, assuming I let you go back at all, he'll understand that Nora Castellano is not leverage. She's not a weakness. She's a line you don't cross, and anyone who tries will face consequences they can't imagine. He turns to look at me then, and there's a question in his eyes, asking if I'm okay, if this is too much, and I realize this is my moment to choose, to either accept this side of him or walk away forever. I move to stand beside him, taking his hand in mine, and I look at the men who tried to hurt me with all the coldness I can muster. You should have stayed away from the chrysalis. Kieran's expression shifts, something like pride mixing with the violence, and his hand tightens on mine. Take them to Volkov. Make sure he understands that any future attempts on Nora or anyone associated with me will be met with escalation he can't handle. Make sure he knows that I'm willing to burn his entire operation to the ground if he tests me again. His men move to comply, dragging the attackers away, and then it's just us in the warehouse, and Kieran turns to me fully. Are you okay? He asks, and his voice is softer now. Human again. I don't know, I admit. That was intense. That was restrained, Kieran says. What I wanted to do to them for touching you, Nora, what I'm still fighting not to do, is much worse than what you saw. I know, I say quietly. I could see it in your eyes. And, Kieran asks, are you running? Are you deciding this is too much? I think about it, really think about whether I can live in this world, be with this man, accept this version of love that comes with violence and danger and constant vigilance, and I realize that the answer is yes, because the alternative is losing him, and I've already done that once, already spent 6 years without him, and I'm not willing to do it again. I'm not running, I say firmly. But Kieran, if we're doing this, if I'm stepping into your world, then I need real honesty. I need to know everything, understand everything, be part of decisions that affect me. Can you do that? Yes, Kieran says without hesitation. Yes, I can do that. No more protection through ignorance, no more secrets. You want to be my partner? Then that's what you'll be. Okay, I take a breath. Then let's do this properly. Let's show Volkov and Chen and everyone else that I'm not hidden, not ashamed, not some secret you keep locked away. What are you suggesting? Kieran asks, and there's something almost hopeful in his voice. I'm suggesting that the next time you have a business dinner or party or whatever, I'm there, I say. Not as a bartender, not as hidden girlfriend, but as the woman you've chosen, the woman who stands beside you. Let them see that I'm not going anywhere. That will make you more of a target, Kieran warns. I'm already a target, I counter. But if I'm standing next to you, if everyone knows that hurting me means going through you, maybe they'll think twice. Kieran pulls me closer, and there's something fierce in his expression. You're sure about this? Because once we go public, once everyone knows you're mine, there's no taking it back. I'm sure, I say, and I mean it. I'm choosing you, Kieran, All of you, the good and the bad and the dangerous, I'm choosing us. He kisses me then, hard and possessive, and when we break apart, he's smiling, really smiling, for the first time since the attack. Tomorrow night, he says, there's a charity gala, black tie, all the major players will be there, including Volkov and Chen. Come with me. Let me introduce you properly. Show everyone that you're not just someone I'm seeing. You're the woman I'm building a life with. That's fast, I observe. That's necessary, Kieran corrects. After tonight, after what happened, we need to establish you as protected, as part of my world. The longer you exist in this gray area, the more dangerous it is. Okay, I agree, even though the thought of facing down a room full of criminals and power players is terrifying. Okay, tomorrow night. But Kieran, I'm going to need a dress. He laughs, actually laughs, and pulls out his phone. Consider it handled. I'll have options sent to your apartment tomorrow morning, and Nora, thank you for trusting me enough to stand beside me. Thank you for letting me, I respond. And as we leave the warehouse hand in hand, I realize that this is what I wanted all along. Not to be protected from his world, but to be included in it. Not to be kept safe, but to be treated as equal. And terrifying as it is, it also feels right. Feels like we're finally building something real. Something that might actually last. Tomorrow night, I'll walk into a room full of dangerous people on the arm of the most dangerous one, and I'll show them all that I'm not afraid, that I chose this, chose him, and that anyone who wants to use me as leverage will have to go through both of us. And maybe that's insane. Maybe I should be running, but I've spent 6 years running from what I feel, and I'm done protecting myself at the cost of living, done choosing safety over happiness. If loving Kieran means living dangerously, then I'll learn to be dangerous too. Chapter 10, Claimed.
I'm still here.
The gala is exactly what I expected. All crystal chandeliers and designer gowns and people whose net worth could feed small countries. And when I walk in on Kieran's arm wearing a dress that cost more than 3 months of my rent, every conversation in the room stops. I can feel them watching, cataloging, judging, trying to figure out who I am and why Kieran Baylor would bring someone like me to an event like this. And instead of shrinking under the attention, I lift my chin and meet their stares directly, because I'm done being invisible. You're enjoying this, Kieran murmurs, his hand warm on my lower back. Maybe, I admit. There's something satisfying about disrupting expectations. We make our way through the room. Kieran introducing me to business associates and crime lords and politicians who all blur together into one mass of expensive suits and calculated smiles. And I can see the moment each of them registers that I'm not just a date, I'm something more permanent, something that matters. Volkov approaches eventually, all false charm and dangerous eyes, and beside him is the tall man from the attack, sporting a black eye and careful movements that suggest broken ribs. Baylor, Volkov's accent is thick, Russian. I see you brought a guest. Dmitri, Kieran's voice is cold. This is Nora Castellano. My partner Nora, this is Dmitri Volkov, the man whose employees recently made a very poor decision. I extend my hand, forcing Volkov to either shake it or insult me publicly. Mr. Volkov, I've heard so much about you. He takes my hand, and there's something assessing in his gaze. Miss Castellano, I hope my men's enthusiasm didn't cause lasting harm. Nothing I couldn't handle, I say smoothly, taking my hand back, though I imagine they're handling significantly more now. Volkov's expression shifts, something like respect crossing his face. You have spine. I like this. Perhaps I underestimated your importance. Perhaps you did, Kieran says, and there's steel in his voice. And perhaps that's a mistake you won't make again. No, Volkov agrees, looking between us. I think I understand the situation now. Miss Castellano is not leverage. She is partnership. This changes calculations. I'm glad we're clear. Kieran's hand tightens possessively on my waist. Because anyone who touches her answers to me directly, and Dmitri, we both know how I handle people who cross that line. We do, Volkov nods slowly. Then let me be first to recognize this alliance officially, Miss Castellano. You have my respect and my assurance that what happened will not happen again. It's as close to an apology as men like him give, and I accept it with a nod, watching him walk away before turning to Kieran. That was easier than expected, I observe. That was him testing boundaries, Kieran corrects. Now he knows where they are. Chen appears next with Vanessa, and this confrontation is harder, more personal, Because Vanessa looks at me with barely concealed contempt, and Chen's expression suggests I've personally insulted his lineage. Baylor, Chen says coldly, I see you've made your choice clear. I have. Kieran doesn't apologize. Richard, Vanessa, this is Nora, the woman I intend to build a future with. A bartender, Vanessa says, and the word drips with disdain. A partner, I correct, meeting her eyes, and someone who actually makes Kieran happy, which I suspect is more than you could manage. Kieran coughs to cover a laugh, and Chen's expression darkens. But before he can respond, I continue. Mr. Chen, I understand you're disappointed that your business alliance didn't include a marriage arrangement, but respectfully, Kieran is not a commodity to be traded. He's a man capable of making his own choices. And he chose me. You have no understanding of our world, Chen says dismissively. Maybe not, I agree, but I understand him, understand what he needs, what makes him better, and Mr. Chen, with all due respect, that's worth more than any business deal. There's a long silence, and then Chen's expression shifts, something calculating replacing the anger. Perhaps you are not as unsuitable as I assumed. Very well, Miss Castellano. If Kieran believes you are worth the complications you bring, then I will respect his judgment. It's not warm, not welcoming, but it's acceptance, and as they walk away, Kieran pulls me closer. That was impressive, he says quietly. That was necessary, I respond. Someone had to make them understand I'm not going anywhere. The rest of the night passes in a blur of conversations and careful politics, and by the time we leave, I'm exhausted but triumphant. Because I did it, I stepped into his world and didn't break, didn't run, didn't become something I'm not. In the car, Kieran takes my hand. I'm proud of you, the way you handled yourself tonight, the way you refused to be diminished, Nora. You were magnificent. I learned from the best, I say, leaning into him. You've been navigating this world your whole life. I'm just catching up. No, Kieran corrects. You're bringing something I never had, authenticity, the ability to be exactly who you are without apology, and Nora, that's more powerful than any political maneuvering. Smooth talker, I accuse. Honest talker, he corrects, and then we're kissing, and nothing else matters except this. Us, the future we're building together. Epilogue, Manarola.
Tomorrow feels different.
6 months later, the house cascades down the cliff in impossible colors, yellow and pink and orange, and from our terrace I can see the ocean stretching endless and blue, exactly like I always imagined. Worth the wait? Kieran asks, coming up behind me with 2 glasses of wine. Beyond worth it. I take the glass, lean back against him. I can't believe we're actually here. I told you I'd bring you. Kieran kisses my temple. I always keep my promises. We've been in Manarola for 3 days, and every moment has been perfect. Walking narrow streets hand in hand, eating pizza that tastes like dreams, watching sunsets that paint the world gold, and I feel more at peace than I have in years, maybe in my entire life. What are you thinking? Kieran asks. That I'm happy, I admit. That 6 years ago, I never could have imagined this. Standing here with you, having survived everything we survived to get to this moment. Me too. Kieran turns me to face him. And Nora, I want more moments like this. More sunsets and travels and quiet mornings where we don't have to think about danger or politics or anything except us. That sounds perfect, I say, and I mean it. Then marry me, Kieran says simply, and suddenly he's holding a ring. Simple and beautiful and exactly right. Marry me and make this permanent. Make us official in every way that matters. I look at the ring, at him, at the ocean and colorful houses and the life we've built, and the answer is obvious, has always been obvious. Yes, I say, and I'm crying and laughing at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you. He slides the ring on my finger and kisses me as the sun sets over Manarola. And I think about 18-year-old me who fell in love with a boy who broke her heart, about 24-year-old me who built walls to protect herself, and about who I am now, standing in my dream location with the man I love, choosing happiness over safety, choosing love over fear. I love you, Kieran says against my mouth. I love you too, I respond, now and always. And as night falls over the Cinque Terre, as lights twinkle on in the colorful houses and the ocean sings its eternal song, I know with absolute certainty that this is home, not the place, but the person, and I've finally found where I belong.
Hello, beautiful souls. If you made it all the way here, thank you, truly. This story. God, this one was different. I poured myself completely into Nora and Kieran. Every fear each of them faced, the fear of second chances. Every doubt about whether love can survive when people grow apart. Whether it's really worth living through the pain that leads to healing. Writing, Nora taught me that strength lives in courage, and courage isn't the absence of fear, it's facing every part of it even while feeling it, because living for the extraordinary is worth it. And Kieran? He reminded me that even men who seem untouchable can be transformed by love. I wrote this loving every single scene. The tension, the heartbreak, the healing, the danger, the surrender. All of it. If their story made you feel something, anything, then I accomplished what I set out to do. Love isn't always safe. Sometimes it's messy and complicated and requires us to be braver than we ever imagined possible. But damn, when it's real, it's worth every risk. Thank you for letting me share Nora and Kieran with you. Until the next story, my dears, Lena. P.S. If you loved this, tell me. Your words inspire mine.